Well, God bless you. I'm James Jackson.
And I'm Pastor Wayne Moore.
We want to welcome you to a show today. It's going to be a great show. We have some wonderful guests who are here with us on today. In fact, we have one of our great counselors for the city of Indianapolis.
Great pastor.
Yeah, Dr. Stephen J. Clay.
Yes, he's doing a great work in the city of Indianapolis. I've watched him for the last 10 years. He's done some remarkable things as it relates to leadership in the community. Now he sits on the council. He was elected this past year. He ran as a candidate and won overwhelmingly in his district. So we're here to not only celebrate with him, but to find out what's going on with him today.
And I think that he'll be able to give us some insight with regard to the passing of the $1.1 million budget,
Right.
$1.1 billion budget for the city of Indianapolis under Mayor Joe Hogsett. And as I understand it, Dr. Clay was also involved in helping to make sure there were more funds to find program or fund programming for grassroots organizations.
Yes, and I think that he needs to be commended for that. I've watched council for the last couple of years, and especially since he's been on there, and he's been making some great inroads for the city of Indianapolis, and hopefully he'll be able to share some more with us today.
Yeah, one of the remarkable things is, and it's very rare, is to have a local pastor also serving on the city council.
Yeah, and I think it's probably hadn't happened in over 30 years. So he's resetting a precedent, and he needs to be commended for that. And I think preachers ought to support him.
Yeah.
And we're going to hear what he has to say. And I think he's going to have some good information for the community today.
And we could go so far to say that it's resetting a biblical precedent.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, and the multitude of counselors.
Yes.
There's safety.
There's safety.
So we want you all to stay here with us on today. It's a great show on today. Our guest, Dr. Stephen J. Clay. You're going to be very, very informed with what he has to share with us on today. And if you have any questions that you would like to ask us, go to our Facebook page, Real People, Real Voices, and we'll entertain your questions. Stay tuned. We'll be back after this. Well, welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. I'm your host, James Jackson.
And I'm your co-host, Pastor Wayne Moore.
And we have with us, we want to get right into it, Dr. Stephen J. Clay. Welcome to the program.
Pastor Jackson, Pastor Moore.
Dr. Clay.
Honored to be here with both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're glad that you have come to share with our Indianapolis community in Central Indiana. Of course, you're serving two leadership roles, primary, I would say, leadership roles here in the city of Indianapolis. Talk to us about that.
Well, it's been my privilege to serve as the senior pastor of Messiah Baptist Church for nearly 35 years now. And so that is, for me, primary. The opportunity to extend that ministry by serving in public office on the City County Council is a privilege like none other. And I'm honored to serve the people of the 13th District of the City of Indianapolis.
And the people of the 13th District, when they had the chance to vote, of course, the first round was by appointment, and you replaced another great man who was on the council. But the second time around, the people favored you and voted for you.
Yeah, both by a vote, really. The first vote was by a caucus of the Democratic Party, and then the second term was by the people that make up the 13th District, and so I am honored to serve that district on the City County Council.
All right. And of course, I'm glad you're here because the city of Indianapolis, under Mayor Joe Hogsett, on the other few days ago, have adopted the $1.1 billion budget.
Correct.
And I know one of your passions is public safety, and it appears that there's going to be some good things in there with regard to public safety for the people in our city.
True. We were able to add into this budget an appropriation to the amount of $250,000, and it is our understanding that this is a necessary first step, but there will be increases to this public safety grant which is provided by the city. Some time ago, you may recall that this appropriation was at a $5 million level, and over several administrations, it has received less funding. We're moving that dial back in the direction that it should be going. This step, though small, is significant. Again, it's small, but it's significant. It's $250,000 to the $2 million that has already been appropriated for crime prevention.
All right. And that's very important.
It is. It is to see the movement going upward again. That simply means that other groups, grassroots organizations and other groups will be able to receive some resources based on the bureaucracy that they had to go to get those resources. It's good to know that it's there. You need to be commended for that, Dr. Clay, for making sure that happens.
Thank you. We didn't do it by ourselves. The council works best when it works as a team.
Yes.
Through rigorous debate and discussion, and then coming up with the consensus to be able to do something that serves all of our constituents, no matter what district they live in.
And it appears with the vote being 18-7, 18
There was
for 7.
bipartisan support for the
Okay.
passing of this budget, yes. And I think that's important. And
Yeah.
I think that says something about people who are willing to understand it doesn't have everything that I want, but it has enough in it for me to support it. And I think that's what you get when you have the kind of government that works best when both sides hurt just a little bit and both walk away saying, I didn't get everything I wanted.
Yeah, that's the one way to put it. I tell you. Everybody feels a little of the pain.
Everybody feels a little bit of the pain.
And what a lot of our viewers may not know is that with the council, of course, that's your primary responsibility with regard to serving the people at that capacity. But there's also the Public Safety Criminal Justice Committee, and you serve on that, and the Municipal Corporations Committee.
Correct.
And certainly you're not new to public safety. You've served on the, in fact, we had the, I had the great honor of serving with you on the Merit Board for a short time.
Indeed.
And Indianapolis has never had the right proportion of police officers with regard to the people who live in this county, in the Indianapolis area. And right now we're somewhere around 2 police officers per 1,000 residents. The budget will allow for another recruit class of about 86 people. Of course, with the attrition of
You're looking at a net of 32, honestly.
about a net of 32.
Yeah.
How do we catch up? And
Well,
of
it's
course,
deliberate. You're not going to oops your way into where you need to be. It's going to be strategic. It's going to have to be deliberate. And people with common concern about public safety are going to have to reach a consensus. But as been my position in this last budget cycle, is we can't police our way out of the problems that our communities face. But if we're going to add more policemen because we agree that there may be a need, we must be also able to add dollars to the other agencies that are going to be impacted as a result. More police, more arrests, the need for more public defenders, need for more agents at the community corrections, need for more deputy prosecutors. So you cannot, in good faith, put more police officers on the street and not impact to a positive degree those other agencies that are immediately impacted by more police on the street. And so we're able to say today that as a result of some strategic conversations that we had with the city's comptroller, along with the heads of those agencies, Terry Curry, Marion County Prosecutor, Bob Hill, who works in our Public Defender's Office, and Community Corrections, we were able to ensure that those budgets are able to address their most immediate need of staffing as a result of this last class of officers that came online.
So, Dr. Clay, you're basically telling us now we're going to be able not only to have a class of a little over 30, something new officers to come in, but the wraparound services now are going to be addressed as well.
Well, those services with respect to the prosecutor's
Right,
office,
right.
with respect to the public defender's office, with respect to community corrections. One interesting piece of information that I thought and took note of, Dr. Moore and Dr. Jackson, was that according to community corrections, we have in Marion County over 3,600 people that are on some kind of monitoring device. We have more people on monitoring devices than we have in the Marion County Jail.
Wow.
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 That's a lot.
That's
a lot.
It would seem to me that if you have that many people on monitoring devices, there's probably a big challenge with the monitoring.
Well, yes, and that is an impacted area that has to constantly be monitored because technology
Changes.
is constantly changing. And so there has to be consideration in the budget for those changes that we may not be able to necessarily see right now, but should have to anticipate before the budget cycle is over. And so that's why some of these agencies come back and ask for additional appropriation during the fiscal.
All right, so looks like we've got our work cut out for us.
Yeah, we got our work cut out for him. He has his work cut out for him as well. I mean, to talk about some of the things that he's talking about, which will make the city better, more efficient. Criminal justice system will be a lot better if these things can take place. And it seems like he's got a long and hard road to go with that.
And we'll come back and talk about that.
Yeah, we will.
It's extremely important. And for those of you who are watching, we have Dr. Stephen J. Clay. He is the councilman for the 13th District. And those of you who are watching from the 13th District can certainly be proud of the work that he is doing. If you have a question that you would like to ask with regard to public safety, please do so on our Facebook page, Real People, Real Voices. We're glad you tuned in. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. I'm your host, James Jackson.
I'm your co-host, Pastor Wayne Moore.
We want to thank you for tuning in every Sunday to watch this show. Please tell your friends about it. Also, go to our Facebook page, like it, and you can also watch this show as well as others that we've done in the past on the WHMB 40 YouTube channel. I'm sure that you will enjoy. Dr. Moore, Dr. Clay, off air, we're talking about the changes that have been made with regard to IMPD, IFD. Years ago, we had a chief, we had a public safety director, and now, as you've indicated, IFD and IMPD are standalone agencies.
Correct.
So if you could expound on that for us.
The vision of this mayor, Mayor Hogsett, was to create in his own organizational structure these agencies to be standalone. So what used to be under an umbrella, which was EMS, animal control, fire, and the police department under one umbrella called public safety. This mayor's vision for reorganizing of the police department was to create these agencies as standalone agencies, which means, for example, they will have their own appropriation. For example, with respect to the police department, their fiscal for the year 2017 is a little over $232 million. And for IFD, it's $167 million. The public safety portion of the city's budget, which includes the courts, makes up more than 60% of the city's overall budget. So when you talk about the investment of public safety in terms of dollars, we're talking about significant dollars in public safety, $232 million being in IMPD and $167 million being in IFD. You say, well, how does that impact the council or the people? Well, because it calls for us to be greater stewards. When you're talking about giving a chief of police basically the status of the head of a Fortune 500, not only is he responsible for policy and procedure, but he's also responsible for the oversight of the people's money. And so it is important that we hold that department and all agencies accountable for the amount of taxpayer dollars that is being invested in those agencies for them to achieve efficiency.
Question, how has the transition gone so far as it relates to the standalone idea?
I think it's a work in progress. As with anything, there's always going to be a few bumps, things you anticipate, and some things actually that you don't anticipate. But I think that Chief Riggs is suited for the task. I think he's able to do it. But as with me and any other politician or appointed, because he's an appointed position, you have to hold them accountable. You just don't give somebody that kind of oversight without having the kind of mechanisms in place, and that's that's one of the roles of the council, is to have the fiduciary oversight to ensure that the taxpayers' dollars are being utilized for the purposes intended.
And when we talk about that significant amount of financial investment into public safety, and I did a little research a few weeks ago, and out of 100, there's a scale that is used to determine how safe a city is. On that scale, we were a 3, and then, as I understand it, 13th in the nation with regard to unsafe cities. And of course, a lot of that has happened prior to the new administration. But going forward, with the city's budget being largely public safety, how do you, and you have a unique perspective because you're not just a councilman, but you're also a pastor. Where's the disconnect? If our viewers are watching, they're saying we're spending all this money for public safety, you know, how do we get out of this? How do we get turned in the right direction?
Well, in terms of public safety, I think there's no one silver bullet. That in order to achieve not just the feeling of safety, but the reality of safety, it's going to be a partnership. The police can't do this by themselves. The churches can't do it by themselves. Communities do best when they find a way in which to work in collaboration. That's why our emphasis on trying to ensure that those public safety grant dollars are available is to assist those partners that we know on the front line are making a difference in the lives of young people. And when they are engaged in positive activities and when they have positive role models, we can see a better and a safer community, because you can't police your way out of it. One of the greatest deterrents for crime, statistically, is a good job and a good education. Mm-hmm. And if a city does not have that at its heart and at its core, then that city will always find itself against the trend.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask the question, Dr. Clay. You mentioned collaboration. If you were to gauge it as it relates to community, law enforcement, et cetera, how do you think the collaboration is going from a councilman's point of view, first of all, and then from a pastor's point of view?
Well, it's a unique position, and I think they're pretty much the same, that there's work that needs to be done. Mm-hmm. We cannot be, we meaning clergy, from that, may answer it that way first. Clergy can't be called in the time of triage, mm-hmm, to a scene, to a situation, to a problem. Clergy work best when they are part of what's going on when the meal is being prepared and not called in the dining room once it's done. Right. And so I think what the city has learned over a number of years is that it's important to have clergy involved on the front end and not just having them come in and do triage on the back end. From a city county councilor's perspective, we're only as serious about remedy as we are about revenue. Now, you can't just throw money at everything. Right. But as I say in my church, prayer moves heaven, but money moves earth. And if you want something to move on earth, you're going to have to put some money behind it. And so there is an inequity about $250,000 for crime prevention when you're looking at a budget of over $1 billion. Mm-hmm. If we do the tithe thing, we ought at least tied into the criminal, to the public safety, right. Criminal justice piece, 10% of what the city's budget is if we really want to impact this thing. But I know that's a hard road to hold, but that's where I am on that.
Well, you know,
that's kind of where I am on that.
You know, historically, they used to give the gold to the churches to make sure things are taken care of. In the time we have left, and I may be precipitous to say, but it appears that we have a Democratic mayor, we may have a Democratic governor, and again, I may be precipitous to say, but if that happens, and it looks like in the presidential race, we may have a Democratic White House. And if that happens, would that speed the wheels up on making a lot of changes that need to be made?
It certainly would put everything in the position for speed to take place.
That's a good answer, Dr. Clay. Just because it looks like that doesn't necessarily mean it can happen that way.
It should work like that.
Yeah. But anything can happen. It's politics. It could go either way.
Yes.
So, all right. So, thank you for coming.
Pleasure's
You're
mine.
doing a great job,
Thank you so
Dr.
much for
Clay.
having me.
Doing
I
an
appreciate it.
outstanding job.
Thank you, sir.
I want to thank those of you who've tuned in on today. We really, really appreciate it.
Yes, it's been a great show to have this monument of a man be with us today. He's done an outstanding job in this interview.
And he's just getting started.
Just getting started. We've got great things going to come from this young man.
When it comes to your money, whatever you want to get smart about, you can find at smartaboutmoney.org. Smart About Money is a free online resource. We are a non-commercial, non-profit organization dedicated to helping people just like you get information about money. For everything from how to build an emergency fund to how to deal with job uncertainty, smartaboutmoney.org has the answers you've been looking for. Smartaboutmoney.org, the easy place to start when you want to get smart about your finances.
Well, welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. I'm your host, James Jackson.
I'm your co-host, Pastor Wayne Moore.
And we have with us Faith
McKinney.
McKinney. She is one of our executive producers, joining us for the rundown. So, what do you think?
Well, you know, I loved your interview with Pastor Clay. He's got a lot of work to do, and you know, he mentioned a collaborative effort,
Right.
working on the City County Council, and boy, I can't imagine that's an easy job.
Yeah, and then being a pastor, working with different personalities, not only in the church, but also in the city as well. He has a tremendous task ahead of him. I'm very appreciative of what that transpired the other day as it relates to the Ground Roots efforts to help other groups become a part of programming and financial stability in Indianapolis. And he and the council did that on the other night.
And I thought it was interesting. He mentioned if you were using the tithing principle to determine how much money to make available for grassroots programs, wraparound services, you know, 10% of $1.1 billion.
Billion dollars, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of wraparound services.
Yeah. What's so ironic about it is our federal taxes, our government uses the 10th ideology, but it's a little bit more than the 10th. But for some reason or another, they have a hard time extending that privilege to other people.
You know, well,
Kind of funny, fuzzy math, huh?
well, as I indicated, historically, in the infancy of the state would give a certain amount of gold
Yes.
to the church.
Yes.
The church was a focal point
Right.
of everything that was going on.
It brought stability to the communities back then. And it's a rough job now doing that, bringing stability back to the community, because it takes resources to do it now, a lot of resources. But hopefully we'll get it done. Hopefully we can get some things done in the community.
Yeah.
So Pastor Clay's position is historic.
Very
And-
historic, yes.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, a
With
lot,
some-
a lot of people don't think it can be done, but he's been doing it really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been doing a lot in the community over the years, silently, but
Yeah, and in his district ought to be happy to have him there. He won overwhelmingly, done a great job campaigning. He's there now. Now he's on the council. Hopefully he can do some things that will better the city of Indianapolis and communities as well.
And I served with him on the merit board and always thought he had a tremendous gift for governing,
Yeah.
and we're seeing that.
Yeah, he's a great leader. Great leaders don't have to have masses. They just have to utilize what God has given them to do what it is that they need to do, and he's doing that.
Yeah. So, God bless you all for watching today. We appreciate you so much, and we hope that you will join us again next week.